I'm going to initially take you through a few PowerPoint slides, give you an overview of Integrify and the solution, and then really jump into the system itself. As you have any questions, enter them into the chat box. I will answer any questions as they appear, and at the end I will give you an address that you can write for additional questions or if you want to reach out to Integrify itself. Some background on our organization. We were founded in 2001. We've been around for the past decade and a half. The right-hand side is just a quick snapshot of a portion of our client base. A lot of our early on or cornerstone key clients came out of highly regulated industries, so they came out of healthcare, pharmaceutical, energy, financial services as well. We've experienced a lot of success and growth over the past decade and a half. We've experienced a lot of that because of the close relationships we have with our client base. A lot of what you're going to see here in the solution today is not just based on where the market's going, but also based on what's helpful and feedback from our clients as well. We work very diligently to ensure that the solution we're providing for those clients is the proper solution and that we're implementing it properly within their organizations. You hear different phrases: workflow management, process management. We refer to it as request management. On the back end, you'll be able to manage your forms and your processes, your internal SLAs and reporting, but really from an end user perspective, if the end user doesn't embrace the system, it really doesn't matter what it does on the back end. And so there's a lot of different configurability available within Integrify that no matter where the end user's interacting with the system, if it's from their phone, from their tablet, from their laptop, from their desktop, they're going to have a Google simple method of interacting with the system so they can submit requests, get status updates, complete tasks, get reports, whatever they need to do. They can get into the system and get out and get on with their day so they're able to be very productive. You manage what your different business rules and routing are. It's applicable to a lot of different internal areas. And then Integrify can be your system of record, or you can integrate with your system of record as need be. Now, that makes us an agile platform for the rollout of different internal request types. They can be external facing as well. It just depends on who your different constituencies that you're working with are. Makes us very flexible, very agile, and in terms of a successful rollout, you can obviously manage your interactions with your end user, your different processes and forms, but really what's key is the ability to manage ongoing change. You don't have lag times of 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. As your business changes, you're able to adjust the processes and touch points within Integrify. You don't have to do any sort of programming to get up and running within the system. The only time you need those level of skill sets would be if you're doing integration with other systems. Again, as you have any questions, please enter them into the chat. If at any point you want to reach out to us directly, sales@integrify.com. Let me go ahead and pause this. I'm going to log into the system wearing the hat of an end user and really take you through CapEx requests being submitted by a user. This system can be hosted on your servers. It can be hosted in our standard cloud, and we also have a private cloud option available. If it's on your servers or in the private cloud, you can integrate with your existing authentication so that the user is not prompted for a username and password, but the system will recognize them as long as they're logged in to the network. When I log in as a simple end user, you're going to see some very limited permissions. So I'm just logging in with the ability to start a request, to look at any requests that I've submitted so I can see where things stand at any given point and any tasks assigned to me. Over on the right-hand side, these are different views that are configurable from an administrative perspective, and you can provide different tabs for your users based on what you want them to see when they log into the system. This is just a very simple login, so I can see requests submitted by me. Anything that I've submitted in the past, I can see where it stands at any given point, and then I can initiate one or multiple processes. Here is our capital expenditure request. All of this can be customized for your users, and it can be done at the group role, at the group level, at the role level, or even at the individual user level. When I click on capital expenditure request, that's going to pull up a form. These are HTML-based forms. They can look like or mimic anything you may have in place today. The default layout is a top-down layout. I'll show you a couple of examples of different layouts that can be helpful, but these are always created just through standard question types. Whether it's a drop-down list, whether you're pre-filling information, you can search on external systems. You can have yes/no questions. You can attach different information as well if you choose to. So if you want to attach documentation, include that in any email notifications, you can absolutely do that. I tend not to have too many required questions within the demo, as it can definitely bog us down, but any of the questions can be required questions. You can also provide field level help for folks. Let me go in here, put in an effective date on this. We'll go a little further forward, maybe more information. And then when I have all that and I'm ready to submit it, I just click on Submit, and that's going to save all that information back into a relational database. Here is request number 3358. It is a capital expenditure request. Its current status is submitted for approval. It's been submitted by Bob. And then as people are included on this, they're going to receive email notifications with information about this request in that email. So here it's been submitted for area director approval. It's been submitted. This can be going to a group, to a role, to specific users. Right now we're including 4 folks here. Any one of these folks can approve it to move it forward. You can require that everyone needs to approve it. You can set up some sort of order as well where it would need to go to Bruce and Joe. And if they both approve it, only then would Stan and Ian be notified. It really just depends on how you want to manage your process in the system. By default, there's a small subset of information that's available in the email: who was requested by, the type of request, its current status, and then a link that the user can click on to be brought directly to this request in the system. So they don't need to search for anything. They're brought directly into their task, into the request itself. You can include additional information, so any information that's been submitted or as part of the request, you can include that. You can also, if you choose to, allow people to approve or deny these requests by email as well, direct in the email. It is mobile friendly, so they can just click on a hot link within their mobile browser, within their iPhone, wherever it might be. I'm going to show you a couple other things here as well. You're going to see that everything is time and date stamped. From an end user perspective, you can also enable users to see a bird's eye view into the entire process. So this is our flow view. It is optional if you want to provide that to the users, where as things execute, they'll color in. We're currently at area director approval, and anything grayed out is either yet to take place or could be bypassed. It really depends on the path that this particular transaction takes through the process. There's also an optional area for discussion. And if I want to, I can say, well, I know this is going on to Bruce. Bruce and I talked about this last week, so I can say, well, this is the project we discussed. And then I can include Bruce here. Let me go ahead and search for Bruce. I can include him here, and then when I save that and post that, that's going to email Bruce. It'll also be time and date stamped. So I have an area for just a healthy back and forth if I want to, or just any message that I want to include out to users that would be a part of this request. Those emails are going to go out. There's a link in there that the user can click on and be brought directly in here to either respond back or take some action. And this is also optional. You may say with some processes you want to allow this, and with others you just don't want to have this discussion area. Going back to the request detail, as we move our way through this particular process, I'm going to go ahead and log out and then log in as Bruce Smith. So hang on a sec. Let me go ahead and log out. I'm going to log back in as Bruce Smith, and you're going to see I have some additional capabilities. Just from a manager perspective, I have some additional capabilities here in the system. When I log back in, you're going to see that there's a different theme. There are some different colors. I also have the ability to monitor requests. I can pull reports or see any queues that are assigned to me. Over on the right-hand side, I can also delegate my tasks. for when I'm out of the office. These two options here, updating my profile and resetting my password, in the standard cloud where users set up their own profiles, you can set it up for them or allow them to update those. You can set that up typically for on-premise clients or where it's synced up with single sign-on. You're not doing that. I also have a couple different views available. So if I want to give the user some different reports that they have access to, you can have one or multiple of these tabs up here, and you can include these reports on the overall tab, but we just wanted to show the different views that are available based on how you want to set up those options within the system. Going back out, I have my latest open tasks. Here's our capital expenditure request. If there are a due date or priority assigned to that, this is where I would see that. Here I can just click right here, and I never have to leave this page. I can give some verbiage to the user. Please review the task below. I can open up what's been requested. If I want to expand this to the entire page, I can. And then I close this, and then here I have approved, denied, needs more information, approved with comments. Really, the nomenclature and terminology that's used here is really up to how you want to set up your process. And for that matter, throughout the entire system, whether it's to start a request or if you want to say, my desktop or my dashboard, whatever nomenclature or terminology you want to use or communicate with your end users, you have complete control of that. I'm going to go ahead and say approved. I'm going to go ahead and say, this looks fine, right? And then before I click submit, I never really have to go over to this request detail here, but I just want to show you something. Here we have it, area director approvals in progress for Bruce. We can see it's specifically in progress for him. And then when I click over here, submit, that's going to update that. We're going to see that it's been completed. It's been completed by Bruce, time and date stamped. And then since we had said any one of these folks can approve it to move it forward, it's fallen off the to-do list or task lists for the other 3 people. It's now at the VP level, and it's been assigned to Cole Buckman. And then if we look in the flow view, that has also progressed forward. So we're at VP level. Cole's receiving email notifications with information about that. And then if we go into the request detail, we see it's been approved by area director. So from a end user perspective, again, we're just trying to keep it as Google simple as possible, put things at people's fingertips so they can get to what they need to get to very quickly. I would want to point out that you can get, if we wanted to have, here's an example of where there's several levels of approval for folks, and maybe we're pushing and pulling and getting information from additional systems as a part of this. Maybe we're updating systems of record along the way. We can absolutely do that within the process, and I just wanted to show you an example of that. Also, I talked a little bit about different forms. The forms, they're HTML-based forms. You can really layer in a lot of functionality. You can layer in a lot of capabilities within the forms. They can get quite complex, and again, we can mimic anything that you may have in place today. There's a lot of flexibility when you're working with HTML-based forms that obviously comes in very handy depending on what you need done and what type, what part of the organization you're working with and what type of process you're working with. It may not necessarily be CapEx. Let me log out. I'll log in as an administrator and show you from an administrative perspective some of the capabilities, how we're able to manage these forms and processes and reports. So let me go ahead and log in as an administrator. When I do, you can see I have this tab down here called Administration, which can come in very handy. But, we had seen that earlier tab with metrics. I can also, I have some different reports at my fingertips as well. If I wanted to manage any of these, we refer to them as shared tabs within our application, within our platform. Here are those shared tabs. And if I look, here's that simple end user tab that I had logged in with initially. Here's where I would be able to say who gets assigned that tab, whether it's a person or a group or a role. And when I click on it, it's going to say the simple end user view, design, and then here's where I'd be able to work with that. I can edit what's in here, edit the title. I can change the layout and add additional items in here, a widget, a report, or a queue. And with any of this, if you need to bypass our portal so that a screen here, a shared tab, a widget, or a form is accessible outside the portal, you can also set that up too. With any of this, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to work with you directly and discuss how we may be able to assist you and how we can add value. All right, let me go over here under Finance. Under Processes is where you'll be able to create, manage all your processes in the system. When I click on our capital expenditure request, that's going to bring me into the process detail. And here's where I'd be able to name that process. I can also version processes or use a process, copy it, and use it as a starting point if I wanted to create something brand new in a different area. By default, any new process or any new version would be in a published status of development. You can then make whatever changes need to be made, move it over to testing, assign testing users to it, and then once everything's functioning in the right way, you can then move it over to production and then sunset your old process. Gives you a lot of flexibility in the system. So you can manage different versions and manage change very easily within the organization. Here under the process flow is where I'd be able to work specifically with this process and work with the rules, who's going to receive different things, what types of email notifications are going out, if there's any reminders or timeouts. So if I want to say area director approval needs to be completed in a day or a week, I can say if not completed in that amount of time, go ahead and send out email reminders to the recipient or recipients of this task, where I'd be able to set the conditions. What's going to kick off this area director approval? What's going to say that once we have area director and VP approval, what are the requests that will continue to need executive VP approval? Is it going to be a different amount or a different type of expense, or what project it's related to? So all those are the different conditions that may come into play when I'm routing this around to different people. If I wanted to add additional tasks in here, all I would have to do is we have different standard task types, whether it's an approval, a form. A form is just a way of capturing information. You can have as many forms within a process as you want. A general email notification, the ability to launch a child request. You can still have the parent wait for information to come back from the child. A milestone is just setting a stage or status for your process. Escalated, submitted for approval, denied, whatever that may be. You also have the ability to push and pull information to and from other systems, to kick off things in batch, to upload to SharePoint, to kick off a web service or some level of REST service. You can absolutely do that. Right now I might say, all right, there are occasions where after presidential approval, we need to go to our board. So I would just take that and drag and drop that new approval over. I can say this is board approval. And then once that's in here, I would say, okay, well, this is going to come after. Whoops. We have different connectors, so I can say this is going to come after here. And I can connect that. And then when it goes out to the board, well, who's going to receive that? Is that going to go to a gatekeeper? Is that going to include a group or a role or whatever that may be? So I'm going to say, okay, here are the folks, and I'll include Alice and Amy. I can say for one of them, for all of them, I can create an order here if I want to as well. But once I include these recipients here, we're going to see there's a little warning sign that comes off of our icon here. I still have a little warning sign on the configuration side. It means that I have not completed configuring this. If I wanted to come in here for an approval task, we had seen approved, approved with comments. These are just the options I'm going to give to my user. You know, approved, denied, whatever that may be. So these are the options that are going to show up for my end user. I can have as many options here as I want. I can utilize whatever terminology I like as well. And then once the warning sign comes off, now we had talked a little bit about adding conditions here. So it's just going to be, from our side, you're going to configure the rules. What are the things that need to happen to initiate this particular task within the process? I'm going to come over here, and it's really just as simple as, don't need any sort of programming whatsoever. You just say, okay, it's based on the requester. Maybe who's ever requesting this, they're coming from a specific cost center or a specific department or division. It may be that you utilize different terminology. Maybe it's a business unit. You can always set that up within our application. We have a lot of flexibility. Maybe it's data coming from any part of our process. This will reach out to any task within the process. If I want to say it's based on form information, this goes out to all the questions on that form. And maybe it's just that if the amount of this capital expenditure request is greater than or equal to, maybe it's $150,000, then we're going to require some level of board approval. And I can layer that in here. I can do and or logic. Really have a lot of capabilities here within the platform. If I wanted to add additional tasks in here, I could. If I wanted to have board approval given, it would just be a matter of placing that in here. You have a lot of flexibility. You can respond to changes as quickly as need be. And then with regards to the forms themselves, I had mentioned that they were HTML-based forms. Let's go ahead and touch on them real quickly. Here's my capital expenditure form. Here's what it would look like for us. If I wanted to add an additional question in here, I'm just going to say new question. And then we have different question types like I had mentioned earlier. A calendar, a contact search, whether it's an email address, a line item. If we're going out to another system, multiple choice or a search box, whatever that may be. Let's just say we want to put in a radio button. I'm going to go ahead and say whether it's a required field or not. I can say it's a required field, and then when I save that, I would just click on here to edit the value. Here's where I would have field level help. This is help, maybe not very helpful, but that's our help. And then I can reach out to an external system if I wanted to, or in my case, I'm just going to have a couple simple check boxes. Choice A, and then I'll go with choice B, just to show you how that might show up. All right, now I have both of those choices. If I want to go ahead and close this, here I have on my form choice A and choice B. If I said, well, that really needs to come up here under due date, and that's where I want it, I would just make that adjustment, and here it would be. If I wanted to get into changing the layout of this, I would just click on Edit Layout. That's going to bring up a rudimentary HTML editor, and you're going to be able to make any sort of changes that you wish. You can also get into the source of the HTML. You can copy it out of here, paste it into a third-party editor. You have a lot of flexibility, and it really just depends on what you need done with a particular form. We have a professional services group that can help you out with anything, assist with knowledge transfer, any sort of training with regard to the application, or we can be the people that you lean on to get your initial project or any project up and running, whether it's from a process perspective, form perspective, whatever you may need. We can be as hands-on or hands-off as it is to be. If I want to click Restore Default, that just brings us to that top-down layout again. I hope you enjoyed our capital expenditure webinar. That was just a brief overview of the system. Please reach out at any point if you have questions. I'm going to place that slide back up, but don't hesitate to reach out if we can assist in any way, shape, or form. Again, that email address is sales@integrify.com. And once again, thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed our webinar.